So a few days ago, I talked about the possibility of Venezuela invading Guyana to take over the Essequibo region of Guyana. Venezuelan voters went out and overwhelmingly supported a referendum on Sunday to claim a large chunk of Guyana, known as the Essequibo region. Now, this move intensifies a long-standing territorial conflict between the two countries, and this has been inflamed by the discovery of significant offshore energy reserves that technically belong to Guyana, but Venezuela is claiming. The referendum was largely symbolic and the questions asked whether Venezuelans favored establishing a Venezuelan state in Essequibo, granting its residents Venezuelan citizenship, and incorporating the area into Venezuela's map. At a press conference, the Venezuelan National Electoral Council revealed that 96% of voters supported the move to take over an area that is roughly the size of Florida from Guyana. For my European followers, Essequibo is a little larger than Greece. Now, Venezuela has historically claimed Essequibo, arguing it was part of its territory during Spanish colonial times, and it rejects an 1899 international arbitration rule that established the current borders between Guyana and Argentina as a British mandate that they don't recognize. Venezuelan President Maduro has framed the referendum in terms of anti-imperialism on social media, which is weird because invading other countries is definitely an imperialist move, but we always see these types of rhetorical statements from leaders like Putin that frame that they're just anti-imperialist and the U.S. is bad, etc., etc. Now, Guyana obviously views this move as a step towards annexation and a significant threat, with the Guyanese president Ali visiting Essequibo's troops and raising the Guyanese flag near the Venezuelan border, signaling their defiance. Now, the International Court of Justice in The Hague, which Venezuela does not recognize on this matter, instructed Venezuela to avoid actions altering the current territorial status. Due to the military and logistics constraints, the establishment of a Venezuelan state in Essequibo appears pretty unlikely in my opinion. Any claim by force would also likely face international opposition. Now, the situation has led to military movements and heightened tensions in both countries, with Guyanese leaders likening the Venezuelan moves to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Guyana is enhancing its security and collaborating with the U.S. military, viewing Venezuela's plans to issue oil exploration licenses in Guyana's territorial waters as a threat. President Ali has declared Guyana's defense forces are fully alert and are coordinating with military allies, including the U.S. Southern Command. An ally intends to bring the issue to the United Nations Security Council later this year. I'm not sure where China and Russia stand on this particular issue, but both traditionally have backed Venezuela and Maduro, and a war in South America certainly benefits Russia by taking focus away from Ukraine. Brazil, who is a major player in the region, obviously, and their president Lula da Silva has emphasized its importance of common sense in resolving the ongoing territorial dispute and stressed the need for stability in South America. The president of Brazil has urged both Venezuela and Guyana to exercise restraint and wisdom in their approach. Also, Brazil has clearly communicated to Venezuela that it will not permit the use of its territory for any aggressive actions against Guyana. This position was affirmed by Brazilian officials as well, which brings me to the map. So obviously we're looking at South America here, with Venezuela up here, Guyana's right here, and then this whole region down here is Brazil. The area that Venezuela wants to take is Essequibo. It's this region right in here, and it's about the size of Florida. The problem is this is extraordinarily impractical, and I talked about this from a military and logistics standpoint. There's just no easy way for Venezuela to get into Essequibo and control it. The reason is terrain, frankly. If you look at the terrain and the infrastructure for transporting logistics and equipment and even people, there is nothing. There is no infrastructure along the border of Venezuela and Essequibo, Guyana. There are only two major routes that they can take. There are two major actions, really, that Venezuela can take. The first one is completely out of the question, and that is going the southern route via these roads and back up into Guyana. Again, this is Brazil right here, and Brazil has stated they are not going to let an invasion force cross their country to get into Guyana. In fact, Brazil has deployed an additional 60 security forces in the region to, quote, enhance stability between the two countries. The other way that the Venezuelans can get to Guyana is via the ocean. Again, this is extraordinarily impractical. I just don't see it happening. When you look at what the Venezuelans would be facing, they would have to launch and then come back into Guyana territory, contending with any kind of shore-based um, artillery and conducting an amphibious landing. And this assumes the United States is just doing nothing off the coast here. They clearly would be upset with Venezuela, sanctions, etc. And the U.S. Navy potentially could become belligerent to Venezuela in this situation. So again, just not a very practical situation for Venezuela, which is why I don't think Venezuela is going to pull the trigger. This may just be a rallying cry for Maduro in a politically difficult year for him. However, all of this may be just a dog and pony show, as Maduro may be doing this to generate support from the referendum during a challenging re-election year. The Venezuelan opposition party recently gained momentum with Maria Corina Machado, who is a center-right ex-Venezuelan legislator, criticizing Maduro's handling of inflation and food scarcity. Maduro's referendum initiative might just be a strategy to rally support amid political difficulties and not actually a signal that they are going to invade Guyana. But still, we must take the possibility of a Venezuelan invasion seriously because history tends to repeat itself. Former Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, who died in 2013, frequently accused the United States of plotting to invade and bomb Venezuela, a belief that led him to expel the American ambassador and frame it as a preventative measure against a coup. Chavez's suspicions intensified after the U.S. imposed sanctions on Venezuelan oil, which he interpreted as a part of a Venezuelan scheme to attack his country. He also saw threats from neighboring countries as Colombia and the U.S. worked together in the 2010s to conduct counter-narcotics operations near the Venezuelan border. This tension increased as both Chavez and now his successor, Nicolas Maduro, depicted a maritime boundary dispute with Guyana as an extension of U.S. control and hostility. Maduro aimed to undermine the 19th century arbitration, which I talked about earlier, this decision that was favored by Guyana, claiming it was influenced by American lawyers. But this conveniently overlooks Venezuela's acknowledgement officially of the 1966 Geneva Agreement, which definitely establishes Guyana's independence and the current borders. The problem is we've seen this before. These events draw parallels to historical conflicts where leaders used aggressive military action to divert attention away from domestic issues. Examples include Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait and Argentina's Falklands War, both initiated under financial distress and justified by contentious sovereignty claims. And if you think Venezuela would be afraid of the U.S. in this case, Iraq wasn't, and Argentina wasn't afraid of the United Kingdom in the Falklands War. Chavez back then and now Maduro have significantly weakened Venezuela's economy and therefore may use similar tactics, obviously targeting Guyana in this case, and they want to distract from their internal problems. However, such an action would not address the root causes of Venezuela's issues, as they never seem to do when it comes to these types of things. Still, I'm unsure if Maduro will pull the trigger or not, as he has to know the U.S. and other countries are backing Guyana in this situation, and if it does become kinetic, potential allies in China and Russia will stay very far away from this situation. But we'll see what takes place. For now, that's all I have. Have a good day, everyone.